I was going to open the programme today with something that I thought you would struggle to believe, which is that Downing Street has asked ministers, and we're talking about this week, while railway workers are pursuing a 7% increase, which will be less than where inflation is expected to be by the autumn. The indication seems to be that they would accept less than that, but they're looking for more than the 3%, which is currently on offer. I'll stress again, the 7% maximum request is still less than where inflation is going to be by the autumn. So in real terms, as politicians and economists like to say, they would still be suffering an actual pay cut. My caller yesterday was correct. I wasn't across the facts sufficiently when he pointed out that MPs are in receipt of above inflation pay rises. So Grant Shapps and Michael Green and Sebastian Fox and all the rest of them will be in receipt of above inflation pay rises, while they furiously resist attempts by RMT members to secure similar. So look, let's do a list. So you've got the railway strike, right? Then you've got the cost of living crisis. And then you've got the employment conundrum, which sees more vacancies than there are jobs available. But take the first two, probably, against the backdrop. Also, while we're on the subject, do you remember when the head of the Bank of England said that workers shouldn't ask for pay rises? And a lot of people in the right-wing media who pretend to care about ordinary workers were outraged by this. And it's outrage. How can the head of the Bank of England possibly say that people on much less money than him, and he's on about £500,000 a year, I think, how can they possibly object to, how can they possibly be told not to ask for pay rises? And then along comes some railway workers asking for a pay rise. It's funny, isn't it? I can't currently see any of the columnists who attacked the Bank of England, the head of the Bank of England, for telling workers not to ask for a pay rise, coming down on the sides of the workers who are asking for a pay rise. I don't know whether or not that is yet more evidence of epic hypocrisy, but I do know that it's happening right under our noses. And against this backdrop, astonishingly, I think, Downing Street has asked ministers to... This is not a parody, all right? This is true. This is news. Downing Street has asked ministers to ease restrictions on city bosses' pay in a bid to show overseas companies the benefits of Brexit. So the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff and Cabinet Office Minister, a chap called Steve Barclay, has written to the Chancellor with a plan to let the highest paid people in the country earn more. This happens to me occasionally. I come on air with something that I'm planning to offer up to you as a sort of bagatelle, a sort of nugget, rather than the meat and two veg of our first hour together. It's a sort of aperitif, a side order, if you like. And then when I actually say the words out loud, I wonder whether we should actually focus upon this and take our eyes off the strike for an hour or two. Don't you find that staggering? I mean, truly staggering. Removing restrictions, this is a quote from the confidential letter that Paul Waugh, the chief political commentator at the I newspaper, has got hold of. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's a cracking little paper, the I. One of the suggestions is removing restrictions on director, and specifically non-executive director, remuneration, as suggested by the London Stock Exchange Group to improve London's attractiveness for listings. Whoa. I mean, listen, there's going to be a technocratic explanation of this that doesn't make it appear quite as staggeringly awful as it initially appears. And if it had come out 6 months ago, or please God, 6 months from now, then perhaps we wouldn't feel as bruised by this revelation as perhaps you do. But as the railway workers are being demonised from here to kingdom come by the government that has refused to do anything to try to stop this strike, and by their cheerleaders in the British media that will defend pretty much anything that Boris Johnson does, and in the case of the Times newspaper, it seems actually pull stories from their print editions, actually remove stories from circulation if Downing Street lean on them hard enough. They are actually planning to make it easier for the people who earn the most amount of money in this country to earn even more.